We're streaming to YouTube. We're ready when you are.
Okay. I'll call this meeting to order. It's a meeting of the Seward City Council, Monday, June 9th, at 7 p.m. Chief, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Roll call for tonight's meeting. Werner?
Here.
Barnwell?
Here.
Wells?
Here.
Kreitz?
Here.
Finch?
Here.
Osenga?
Here.
And Mayor McClure.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. We have one proclamation. I'm losing my voice, so I do my best here. Here's the proclamation. Whereas Flag Day is celebrated on June 14th in the United States, and whereas this commemorates the adoption of the flag of the United States, which happened that day by resolution of the Second Continental Congress in 1777, and whereas in 1916, President Woodrow Wilson issued a proclamation that officially established June 14th as Flag Day, and whereas in August 1949, National Flag Day was established by an act of Congress, whereas many citizens have died protecting that flag, and whereas our flag is representative of our independence, our unity as a nation, and has a proud and glorious history. Now therefore I, Sue McClure, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby encourage all citizens of Seward to fly the American flag with pride in observance of Flag Day, Saturday, June 14th, and show our respect to the flag, our culture, our nation, and its designers and makers, dated this date, 9th day of June, 2025. And I don't know if I have anyone here to accept this proclamation, and if not, I'll probably turn it over to the Legion and let them have this, okay? All right, thank you. And now we have citizen comments on any subject except items scheduled for public hearing. You'll have 3 minutes to speak on any subject except the public hearing items, which you'll be able to speak to then. There was a sign-up sheet for this. If you didn't sign up within the 36-minute total time, I'll take shows of hands at that point to you can speak. And when you come up, there's a chair right there with a microphone, and we'd need your name and whether you live inside or outside the city limits, and then you have your 3 minutes. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed up?
There are 3 people signed in to speak. First on the list is Russ White.
Hello, Russ White, Inside City Limits. I'm here representing Sports and Rec again, and just wanted to give you an update on what we have going and what we've been doing. This past Saturday, we had the Bear Bell Run, youth run of about a mile around Forest Acres. Ended up having 25 participants, went really well, had a little barbecue afterwards. Yeah, and thank you to Seward Real Estate again for sponsoring this year. We have Summer Adventure Camp coming up in July. Super popular. It already filled up in under 24 hours. And I just want to say thank you to our sponsors for that as well, which is Metco, JAG, and Youth 360. Now, our upcoming events. This Saturday, we have a disco skate night. It's a little bit more of a special one because we have a DJ. Shawnee Mikes will be DJing. So it's going to be 5 to 7 for kids to skate, and then 7 to 9 for adults only. Youth soccer signups are now available as well. We have a new website. It's SewardParksandRecreation.com. It's a whole new software. You can go sign up there for any of our programs, but youth soccer is the one up there right now. A couple other events. Open Mic Bonfire we're going to be doing the last Friday of every month this summer, run by Ron Marsh. So this next one's going to be Friday, June 27th from 6 to 8 p.m., and that's at the First Lake Pavilion. And then if you haven't seen them yet, one of workers, Devin Putney, painted new lines, pickleball lines at the Forest Acres basketball court. So check that out. You can rent out gear at Avtech Gym and or bring your own gear. And then we'll have a league starting in July on Wednesdays as well. And then the last thing I wanted to get out there is we have new Rockwall hours with us closing on Sundays. We now have it available from 6 to 7:45 p.m. for adults on Tuesdays, as well as Saturday, 2 to 5 p.m. And that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for all you guys do. Mr. Clerk, who's next?
Todd Mashlin.
Good evening. My name is Todd Mashlin. I am the licensed lay minister at St. Peter's Episcopal Church up the street. I have been reappointed as a commissioner on the Historic Preservation Commission here in Seward. And just to reintroduce myself for those of you who may not know who I am, I'm a recent resident of Seward, but I have been coming to Alaska, I think, since 2007, if my dates are not too far off. I was actually born in the Old West End in Toledo, Ohio, which is the largest contiguous Victorian neighborhood in the United States. So historic preservation and preserving our cultural heritage has always been part of my ethos, my upbringing. I, again, graduated from Kent State University in Ethnic Heritage and British Studies with a concentration in religion, religious comparative studies. But I bring to this city that and hope that I can continue to preserve the efforts that we are engaging here in Seward. There's a lot that we have yet to accomplish, but I hope that we can together make it all happen. There's a lot to do, and I'm hoping to bring what experience I have to it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Next on the list is Robbie Williams.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council and staff, of course. I just wanted to we have land inside the city limits, but we both live outside the city limits in different states. But I wanted to touch on a topic that you'll probably be seeing here in the next month or so, and that's building height. As a builder for the last 40 years, and in real estate assessing, the cost of building in Seward is about 37 to 40% higher than the lower 48. When you build a 3-story building, code says you're going to automatically put in elevators. It's going to be fully sprinkled. You've got tower stairs on both sides for additional exiting and for fire life safety. Building a 4th story where you could put parking underground and then, not underground, but on the first floor, and then building a conventional 3-story building on top brings the economy of scale. It makes it a little more plausible. The reason being, your foundation is already paid for with a 3-story building. Your elevator is already paid for with a 3-story building. and your roof's already paid for with a 3-story building. So that 4-story actually helps some economy of scale when you go to build multifamily townhomes. We hope to, hit a price point where we can contribute to the city of Seward with some well-needed 2- and 3-bedroom townhomes. And I thank you for your time, and sorry I picked a night where you had a full house. By the way, I've been watching you guys on YouTube for a year, and you don't know us, but we certainly know you guys.
Thank you.
Again, this building looks a lot bigger on YouTube.
An illusion.
Thank you for your time.
That was all that signed up, Mr. Clerk?
That is correct. That was all who had signed in.
Does anyone out there wish to have your 3 minutes on any topic except the public hearing topics? Yeah, come on up. And we'll need your name, and if you're inside or outside, you know that.
Hello, my name is Amanda Sweeting. I live outside city limits. I'm the executive director at the Chamber of Commerce. Hello. I'm just calling to remind everybody that we have the boat parade and our float parade. I know it's kind of confusing, boat and float, but the float parade is the car parade in town, and our float parade is the one on the water. And I encourage anyone to sign up, decorate your car, be part of the community. And then also we have the Silver Salmon Derby coming up, and we have a pro fishing category this year, which is basically to encourage charters for $200 if you have a 6-pack and below, $400 if you have a 6-pack and above, to encourage charters. Basically anyone who fishes on their boat gets to be part of the Derby, which is pretty exciting. They can use it as a marketing tool. And yeah, just encourage and give back to our charters, and I encourage everyone to spread the word. And that's it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else? Guess I know why everyone else is here then, public hearing time. Are you sure? Okay. Moving along then, we are at the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda, and I'd ask for a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda.
I'll second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any changes anyone would like to make? I have one. I'd like to put, it would be on the 3rd page, I guess, number 10C1, on the consent agenda. That would be other new business, reappointing Todd Maschlin to the Historic Preservation Commission for a 3-year term. I'd like to put that on consent. Any other changes? Okay, seeing none, we're ready to vote, Mr. Clerk.
Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda as amended. Osenga?
Yes.
Werner?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved, and approved on the consent agenda were the May 12th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. Resolution 2025-050, authorizing the city manager to purchase ESRI Small Utility Enterprise Subscription License for a 3-year term in an amount not to exceed $35,700. Resolution 2025-051, authorizing the city manager to accept and appropriate community assistance program funds in the amount of $106,166.21 for the purpose of capital projects related to fire, public safety, and road maintenance. Resolution 2025-055, authorizing the city manager to accept the proposal by Electric Power Systems to lead the engineering for the EPA Clean Ports Grant Shore Power Project in the amount of $1,830,436, fully funded through the Environmental Protection Agency grant. Resolution 2025-056, authorizing the City of Seward to participate in the Alaska Public Risk Alliance. Resolution 2025-057, authorizing the city manager to purchase a maintenance vehicle for the Parks and Recreation Department in an amount of $57,471 with a 10% contingency, and no grounds for protest to the renewal of the liquor license for Ray's Waterfront And lastly, to reappoint Todd Mashlin to the Historic Preservation Commission for a 3-year term.
Thank you very much. Well, that brings us, since all of that was on consent, it brings us to in-person reports and presentations, and we'll start with the city manager report. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first thing I'd like to note in my city manager report is what we have been putting on the consent agenda and what we have not been putting on the consent agenda. You've noticed that we did a lot of actions with that motioning to pass the consent agenda, and that's because all of the expenditures on there were budgeted for in our FY25-26 budget. So if you're seeing large budget items on there and thinking, oh, why is that? It's because we already discussed that in the budget cycle, or with Resolution 2025-055, it's part of the larger budget we accepted in a grant expenditure. So just to kind of clarify why we are seeing a bit more of those on there, or kind of cleaning up that process a bit. I'd also like to highlight the City of Seward had a special visitor on Friday. The Secretary of the Interior for President Trump's cabinet, Doug Burnham, came to town, and the Harbor Master and I were able to visit with him for about 45 minutes. And we definitely left an unforgettable impression, since Tony was the very first Harbor Master that he has ever met. So he made sure to highlight that multiple times. He may not remember his name, but he does know that he is a harbor master. And other than that, I definitely recommend checking out the latest edition of the City Manager newsletter. We have a new executive admin on the team, Kristen, and she's doing a great job of taking on that task, and that will be coming out about every 2 weeks.
Perfect.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Bickling, do you have anything to add?
Not at this time.
Okay, council, are there questions, comments for the city manager? One should look on page 121 and see pictures of the city manager in several outfits there.
Yes, I both met with, we haven't had a meeting since we attended our trip to Washington, D.C. This is true. So we were able to visit with Senator Sullivan and Murkowski and Representative Begich, and I wore a very nice outfit. And I also came in third in the Exit Glacier 10K, where I also wore a nice outfit, but with a lot more colors and a bronze medal.
Bronze. Congrats. Any questions? Okay, thank you, and it is something that you should read. The city manager reports are really, really informative. Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, I just hadn't noticed this before, but you had talked about the fast response cutter, Coast Guard.
Yes.
Do you have an update on that, or is there anything?
Yeah, so we had conversations about the construction of the new facility for the fast response cutter across the bay, and it's definitely been an ongoing discussion with the Coast Guard. They have funds allocated for the project, but not the total amounts of funds needed to build across the bay there. So we've been advocating for them at both the introductory level and then at the federal level beyond, with Senator Sullivan, Representative Begich, and Senators Murkowski, to make sure that funding comes through. They also have recently purchased or in the process of purchasing several lots in the Hilltop area to build multifamily housing for the Coast Guard when they do return to the community. So the project is moving along. I think it's our job to make sure it continues moving along at a fast speed, recognizing that sometimes those things can get jammed up in the federal cogs, and making sure that the funding's there and appropriated.
Okay, other questions? That was a good one, though. Okay, moving along, city clerk report. We have something on page 132. Mr. Clerk, do you want to say something about what you've been doing?
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm pleased to report I earned my CMC, which is the Certified Municipal Clerk designation, and I'm really grateful for the City of Seward being so supportive of training and education opportunities for staff. And I just posted a few photos on there from the conferences in Seattle and Minnesota that I've attended. Pretty happy to have my CMC now. So, thank you, everybody.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
May I ask a question, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
What makes one a bad boy of clerking?
You'd have to see the report in the packet.
Well said.
Nice.
I have a question too. I was wondering if there are any male clerks other than you in this picture. I mean, they're all female clerks in the whole state of Alaska?
For the most
you
part,
and 25 women.
That's what makes the boys so bad.
Slight red.
Okay, gavel that down.
a lot of women at those conferences.
Can't eat syrup.
Well, after that rousing city clerk report, we, go ahead, top this, attorneys. We have a couple of attorneys here tonight, and they're going to give a report, some of them.
Both of them, yeah.
Both of them.
I'll make mine pretty short. We have a long thing tonight, long schedule. Cody is going to talk about some of his utility work. The couple of things I just wanted to mention, just very briefly, I guess, is the first one, the certificate of authorization from the FAA. That's just kind of cool. I've done a few of these, but we helped in April and May, I guess it was, the police department getting it's basically a certificate from the FAA allowing a city government to do things with drones that would normally be not allowed under FAA regs. And our little piece of it is just to write a letter saying essentially that the city is a city, which here wasn't tricky but can be, and that the drone would be used for valid purposes. And that was a success. That's just kind of neat, I guess. The other thing is I've been talking for a year and a half now about that vessel over by what was formerly Tim McDonald's property, and we've got that largely out of the water now. It's been successful in that regard, but we're hoping to negotiate a way out of that lawsuit now that most of the problem has been solved, but it's not completely solved yet. And we just today, before we came down, got the court granted us. I just asked for a hearing just to get in front of the court to kind of discuss why we're stalled a little bit and try to spur that along. So that's one we've been talking about for a year and a half or 2 years, and it's moving, but just know that we keep trying to keep it moving. So we'll report back at some point. But I want to turn it over to Cody to talk about some of the utility, the RTO.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So I have a little presentation, and I just want to, I guess, catch the city up. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes on this Rail Belt Transmission Organization, or RTO, and July 1st is the big filing deadline for the tariff. So I just want to provide you guys a little update before it got filed to kind of catch you up. Hit the next slide. So these are the 4 questions I want to go over, and I promise it will be quick. I know there's a big agenda tonight, so if you want to flip to the next one. A lot of times when we talk about electricity and transmission, it's kind of hard to get your mind around and wrap your head around it. So the easiest analogy is it's similar to toll roads. This project is trying to get rid of the toll equivalent of, or the equivalent of a toll on a road, except we're talking about transmission lines instead of roads. So, next slide. So what is the RTO? Well, the legislature created it, and essentially it's trying to connect all the transmission together from Fairbanks down to Homer, down to here. So if you think of, hopping in the car and driving up to Fairbanks, well, it's the same for our transmission, except now we treat it like Seward's Roads or Seward's Transmission, Homer Electric's transmission, Chugach's transmission, and we want to just make it kind of one big highway or one big transmission system. So there are a couple legislative goals, and one of the big ones is to replace wholesale charges assessed by unit. So essentially right now, if you use Chugach's system, they charge you a wheeling charge or a toll. And they say to go, to move your electrons from here to MEA system or GBA system, here's the toll fee. And we're trying to get rid of that and figure out a system that works for everyone. If you want to hop to the next slide. So why does Seward care? Why does it matter for you guys as council members? Well, that first kind of point to eliminate those electric tolls, and then the second to charge based on usage of the system. So for electricity, you have to design the system for the largest power spike. And so that's kind of the equivalent of rush hour. You know, you have to have 3 lanes on your highway because at 9 o'clock in the morning, everyone's trying to go to work. And so the way the bill proposes to, I guess, charge that is whoever contributes the most cars during rush hour, whoever contributes the most electrons during that peak period, that's the percentage you pay. And it matters for Seward a lot because Seward's peak is usually in the summer when you have the cruise ships in and a lot of commerce going. But for the rest of the rail belt, it's in the winter. So proportionally, Seward's transmission costs are higher, but we're contributing a lower amount of vehicles to that rush hour, or a lower amount of electrons to that rush hour. So long term, this is should be a positive impact on the electric's financials. And then the other thing is recently we've had the RRC, which is the reliability organization. And so this organization will kind of handle the financials, and that organization handles the planning and the ideas for them to work together so that the best decisions across the state are being made for transmission. So an example is like if the road breaks down between here and Moose Pass, well now all the cruise ship passengers can't make the rest of their itinerary throughout the state. They can spend money here, but they can't spend money in Homer and Fairbanks and Anchorage. So it would make sense system-wide to fix that road so it flows freely again. And it's kind of like that for the electric system. We want to make the best upgrades across the system because it's so small, it kind of makes sense to treat it as one Alaskan system. And while maybe the project is in Homer or Anchorage, it affects Seward's reliability, and it also long-term will hopefully drive down everyone's costs because everyone will have access to the cheapest power. The best project can always get picked. So that's kind of the idea of some of the positive impacts. Some of the other impacts are that it will introduce some type of oversight by the RCA for Seward's electric. Right now, you guys are the only regulator of the electric system. So because these costs will get pooled together and uplifted into this organization, there is going to be some type of regulation, and we're working to limit that and to minimize the impact, but there is a going forward kind of, your foot's in the door and you're part of the organization, so that's part of, I guess, being part of this team. If you want to go to the next slide. So where are we at right now? We've had a couple hearings before the RCA, and the RTO has been issued a CPCN. So the RCA found that it can operate and it's needed, and the governance committee has approved the backbone transmission system, which is essentially the freeway system, and Seward's assets were included in that. So that was a really great positive step. And there are 2 more governance meetings that Mr. Hickey is on that are going to make some substantial decisions on what actually is in that tariff. And some of these things like the RCA regulation, what does that look like for Seward? Well, we're still figuring that out, and the governance committee will get to kind of approve the initial filing that goes to the RCA as the default position. If you want to flip to the next slide. So what are those next steps? Well, it's the July 1st tariff filing, and then it will be a year and a little bit process for these new tariffs to get adjudicated. So it will be kind of a mad rush to July 1st, and then after that there will be some a lot of public involvement, and individual utilities, including the city, can intervene on their own behalf and say, hey, you know, even though this is what got filed, this is what we think the standard should have been, these maybe assets should be in or out, and can make those arguments before the RCA to adjudicate what actually goes into this tariff and what it looks like going forward. So that's the 6-minute version of months of work, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? Councilmember Barnwell.
So I'm assuming the more assets entity have, the less tariff they're going to pay. Is that how that works?
So the assets all get pulled into the RTO cost, and then it gets redistributed based on that demand. So for example, Seward are from Fort Raymond to Dave's Creek. All those costs, so let's just say for you know, demonstration purposes, let's just say that's $1 million goes into the RTO, but then we get a portion cost based on our demand. So if our, you know, those cars we're putting in at rush hour, those electrons at peak demand are only 1%, and the total costs are, you know, 5 million, well, we're only paying 1% of that 5 million. So you put in $1 million of cost, but then you actually only have to pay whatever that demand charge is. So that's where you're getting the net benefit. Because Seward's, you know, it's like that example of building a road. You know, you have all this ramp up to get equipment and get people in place, and then whether you build 40 miles of road or 200 miles of road, it's kind of, you know, a very small marginal cost. But those high upfront costs for equipment to ramp energy up and down, that's where it's kind of higher per person for people in Seward, because you're paying for these kind of large capital costs, and you get to uplift all of that, whereas you're only paying what you contribute to the demand. So.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. That helps. Another question. This is kind of, I don't want to dive too deep, but I just curious. Has there been a discussion because Alaska, the Rail Belt has what I don't even know, 6 different entities. And I know at one point they had talked about the fact that why do we need 6 for such a really a small population of people, and we're paying all of the costs for the administration of those 6 entities. Have they talked about reducing those in any way? So making that more efficient?
Brian was part of a Transco effort, and I think because there was talk about unifying that, and because for whatever reason, you can probably explain, it didn't quite work out. This is kind of the backup of, well, that didn't work out. We still think this is a good idea to pool all these transmission costs, but now we're going to do it on an individual utility basis as the representative rather than one unified entity. Yeah. So, and this board is, I mean, it's made up of a rep from each entity. That's who the governance committee is.
Thanks.
Okay, other questions? Thank you for that. Did you have anything else?
No, thank you. No, thanks for
Okay.
Sam, do you want to share your experience crashing a clerk's conference in Anchorage?
Well, we don't have such a long agenda.
We'll hold on that. Okay. Moving along then. We are to public hearings, and we have 3. The first is an ordinance for enactment of ordinance 2025-009. Mr. Clerk, would you please read that for the record?
Ordinance 2025-009, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Seward, Alaska, amending Seward City Code Title 8, Chapter 8.30.015, Business License Required, and 8.30.025, Application for a Business License.
Okay, and you'll find this on page 135 of the packet. I'd need a motion to adopt at a second, please.
I'll move for the enactment of ordinance 2025-009.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm actually going to pass this over to City Clerk since it's
That's right,
his
it's yours, isn't it? Go
for
ahead.
introduction.
Yes, thank you, City Manager. So this ordinance is kind of an obscure one. I will try to explain that the way that code is written now, it makes the city clerk's office the middleman between the applicant and the borough sales tax and property tax divisions. And it's not a situation that we really want to be stuck in, and it's really time consuming for staff, especially our admin. And I included a couple visual aids in the packet to show how our OpenGov system is all within the city departments, and it's really slick for city departments checking off in their areas for the business license. And then the next one is an example of spreadsheets that Karen creates manually to email back and forth with the borough to check on the sales tax and property tax. And we would like to kind of streamline that to where the applicant is just responsible, for the sales tax compliance kind of on their own accord, and then the application process with the city would just strictly be between the city departments.
Okay. Having heard that, I'll open the public hearing on ordinance 2025-009. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Nobody is signed in.
Okay, is there anyone out there that would like to testify on this particular ordinance? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Questions, comments, concerns from council? I think we've all heard about this, and sounds like a plan, but is there anything from council? I see no hands, so I think we're ready to vote.
Voting on the enactment of ordinance 2025-009, Osenga,
Yes.
Werner,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That ordinance has been enacted.
Okay. And next, we have for public hearing, Resolution 2025-041, and this is a great one to read into the record. Mr. Clerk, go ahead.
Sorry.
I will say that Jason volunteered to read this one, but I will decline his generous offer. Here we go. Resolution 2025-048, determining it to be in the public interest and necessary to proceed with the proposed improvement district for and benefiting lot 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, AX, AY, AZ, BA, BC1, BC2, BD1, BD2, BE1, BE2, BF1, BF2, CD, CE, CF1, CF2, CG1, CG2, CH, CI, CO, CP1, CP2, CQ1, CQ2, and CR of the Forest Acres subdivision for an estimated amount of $1,837,886.
And you'll find this on page 142 of the packet. I need a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of resolution 2025-048.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to have Deputy City Manager Jason Bickling tackle this since he's put a lot of time and effort and research into the resolution.
Okay. Thank you. So, as you know, on April 28th, 2025, Council initiated an improvement district to benefit the properties in the area. From the discussion in the work sessions that preceded it, we have brought back to you a proposed improvement district that includes the cost estimates for final survey, engineering, and construction of roads, cost estimates for the electric installation to the area, provisions for wells in this area only, provisions for septic systems, and we have a resolution on the agenda later to give council approval to remove the plat note that is on a majority of the property owners that will allow them to place septic systems on their property. And then for both of those ladder utilities, we have a permit system and kind of a proposed reserve area so that we can have oversight and make sure that no one inhibits an adjacent property owner from developing. So using the mechanism that was created in 2023, the city will be paying for 50% of the road and electric costs. The city will be paying everything up front. At the final installation, costs will be accounted for and the property owners will be paying the city back 50%. There are a number of options for payment plans. The clerk followed all the noticing guidelines that code requires for the improvement district, and we feel like we went above and beyond what code requires, just to make sure we have good communication and feedback with the property owners in the process. And we asked them to respond back in advance and also give comments. So do you approve or do you oppose this improvement district? And I've been in regular discussions with many of the property owners via email and phone to clarify and answer questions. And then what I did with that is I distributed the questions and answers back out to the group so that all could be equally informed, kind of as best as I could. And the clerk has a laydown that is the response from the property owners. A majority of the property owners approved, like when we're looking at like the number of property owners as individuals, or like let's say by property, was 68%, and they represent a majority of the land area, which is 66%, which is actually the thing that we're looking at. One concern that was commonly voiced that you'll see was the interest rate. So if this is approved, we'll move forward with developing the final engineering road work to put out for RFP. We'll open the work order for the electric install and open permits for septic systems and wells. Septic systems do have to be installed first, and those that are in the plat restricted area will need to wait until the plat restriction is officially removed by the borough, but they actually do have to contact the borough on an individual basis as well. And that's my introduction.
Okay. I'll open the public hearing on Resolution 2025-048. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Nobody has signed in for this one.
Oh, okay. Does anyone wish to speak? If you do, you get 5 minutes to speak. Come on up. And we'll need your name and whether you live inside or outside the city limits for you and anyone else that wishes to speak to this.
Well, hello and good evening. My name is James Carlberg. I live in city limits and I own lot BE1 in Forest Acres. First and foremost, Jason, thank you very much for the years of effort that you put into this project. It means a lot to us. And we finally feel like we are gaining some progress moving forward. There are 3 kind of issues I wanted to address. One was the interest rate. I just wanted some clarification on the interest. It's prime plus 2. And with that, I'm just wondering, is the city taking this money from somebody else and using that interest to cover their cost of interest? Or is this money that the city owns that is we're being charged interest on?
So we can't respond afterwards, but we can respond after it's all closed.
So he'll write that.
So that's my first kind of point of just, it feels like with prime plus 2, I understand that is industry standard or it's like standard across the borough. But it feels like if we get property taxes increasing and we're also paying interest on this, it feels like a little bit of a double tax. So I'm wondering where that is coming from and what the negotiation, or if that is anything that could change moving forward. Because I know some other property owners have concerns about that. The next point is moving forward with well and septic. If we do install well and septic, and down the road, the city does decide to run water and sewer, would we as owners of that property be forced to hook up to it and be forced to accept the full cost and then abandon what we put in well and septic? And then the third point with it then is, what was my third point? I'm sorry, I'm blanking on my third point. But I just wanted to address, I know it's been a long road to get here, and I do appreciate everybody's efforts to this point. So those are my 2 that I have for right now. I'm sure somebody else will have the third one as well. So thank you very much. I'll see the rest of my time.
Okay, and they'll be addressed when we come back.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak? Shy group. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Trevor Kresnar. I live out in Camelot, so outside of city limits. I agree with James's questions. I just had a question. If they do end up putting in sewer and water, would that have to be for the whole entire zone, or could it just run down like Cottonwood, or like, would it be able to be split up instead of the whole entire zone, just based on who wants water and septic and who would rather build their own kind of thing? So that's my only question.
Can you just repeat that real quick so I can write it down?
We'll answer that after.
Yeah, I'll answer, but I just want him to repeat.
Yeah, just
Oh,
if they end up the city puts in water and sewer, would it have to be like the whole entire zone? Especially because some of the lots further north are larger, so, you know, if you have 2 acres, it's a little easier to put in water and septic than if you're got half an acre kind of thing.
okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? It's your last chance. Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back. Normally, I would bring it back to council, but I'd like to have Jason address the questions first.
Yeah, so the Prime Plus 2 is like it is an industry standard. It's what the borough used. I think that the situation that, like, if Prime were 2% right now, no one would be blinking right now, but when Prime is at such an extreme rate, that's what really becomes the issue. And I just looked up some history. The Prime in December of 2002 was 3.5, to give you an idea of how much it's jumped in a very short amount of time. And so, yeah, I just wanted people to hear that piece of it. We have used this for the improvement districts before, but actually everyone has paid it back, like for the DRP situation, because they sell the lots and they were able to pay it back, even though this clause does apply, but we've never had to enact this clause with the DRP participants because it's such a high motivator to get that paid back, because they're not actually having to do that. So, and then do you want to answer the questions for that? For those?
Yeah, to add to the interest rate aspect of it too, it does not go back into the general fund, so it's not a double dipping taxation. It goes back to the development reimbursement program. So if we enact that clause for the interest rate, it would go back into the fund that allows for further development, so further people enacting this program.
So, and to speak to the well and septic, to the hookup piece, is this actually already exists in code? It's just, and exists in a lot of places code where as they bring, if an area existed for a long period of time that was on well and septic, and the city brings in utilities there, they usually have a certain time thing to hook up, just because city utilities are the thing that the more users, the better it is for the group, because it actually like lowers the cost for everyone, because you have those fixed costs that are spread around. And so that's kind of the reasoning behind why there's usually forced hookups if someone brings that. Now, given with this situation, just to speak kind of to the broad picture of the reality of what the city's looking at, is that most of our money in the past very long history for water, sewer, infrastructure pieces has come from the federal government. And so that, I would say, we don't foresee a lot of that coming down anytime soon. We were, even with having the utility that's been on our capital improvements project legislative priorities for a number of years now, and it's one that just does not get a lot of traction because there was already a hardscape to get into. And so it gets more and more expensive every year. I mean, you guys know, like we talked about how expensive it got. I think it was $8,000 per lot per year was it with the increase that we were looking at with how fast it's growing and how expensive it is. And so one, the reality of the city, also we have other priorities that we need to be spending money on in our infrastructure. We have public works facility that needs to be built. We've got fire stations that need to be built. We have lots of other, we've got Harbor Master. There's lots of other projects that we need to be working on. And so just speaking generally, those are more of our priorities than continuing to really like hunt hard for monies that are becoming decreasing. And so I don't really see us bringing or having the ability to bring water and sewer through that area for quite some time. Yeah, so that's kind of the and if we ever did at some point in time, the city's going to have to bear the burden because it's already unaffordable for the property owners at this cost that it is now, and it's increasing so much. And so, I think that the hookup piece would be something that would be a discussion for that time. But I just don't. I mean, realistically speaking, I don't see that coming for like a very, very long time. I can't tell you when that's going to be, but it's just it's way out there. Do you want to say anything else to that?
Yeah, I would add, we can't bind future administrations or future councils from searching for those funds to bring water and sewer out, but the impetus for us bringing water and sewer out to that location was everybody in this room. And so if this passes and we move forward, it will come off our capital improvement federal requests. We won't have to ask for it anymore, and it will not be a priority. But that being said, if and when the time did ever come for some reason down the line, long after we're off this dais, somebody wanted to bring water and sewer down there, yes, you would, by code, have to hook up to it.
And we did actually put that revision in there too. Normal code says 6 months, and we put the provision in for 2 years. Just because, just to continue to build that pad in for down the road and give people, I don't feel like 6 months is enough time to save for your hookup costs necessarily as a normal property owner. So you figure that 2 years, when and if it does come, that would be it gives you at least more time to plan around that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll bring it back to council. Council. Councilmember Finch.
As far as the septic, I know when I bought my house and the city had me agree that if my septic tank collapsed, they already had water and sewer in the area, but when my septic tank collapsed, I had to connect. They didn't force me, saying you have this time frame. They told me that whenever it collapses, then and the sewer's right there, then you have to connect. Is there a way we could have that clause in there that instead of forcing it on them, saying you have to have it in 2 years, that when your septic system collapses and the water and sewer's there, you have to connect, because it'll actually be cheaper at that point in time for them to connect than to rebuild a leach field and a septic tank.
That's something that you guys would need to decide as a body, whether you wanted to change that.
Any? It's down the Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I kind of am not wanting to go that route. I would rather stay the route that if it does happen eventually and we give them a cushion of time to be able to transition to the new water lines and the sewer lines, I think that, to me, that's an acceptable route.
I kind of agree with that because we're looking way down the pike.
I would also add from an administrative standpoint, for a larger group like this to keep track of when all the septics collapse would add a burden layer to it for a potentially outcome that does not seem feasible.
Yeah, I want to pull a James here. I'm going to forget what I said. I think that the likelihood of any council going up against you guys down the road and say we want to spend a heck of a lot of money to put in water and sewer, and then force you guys to pay in. I can't imagine a body doing that if things are functioning well down there. So I think the likelihood of that happening is, I think, phenomenally low, personally. I'm not really, I'm not putting out the money like you guys are. It just seems like a pretty safe bet. The other question I had, though, was it's not DRP funds, right? So these funds are coming out of the city. And how did I miss that? Was there a timeline that they had to pay it back?
So there's a combination of funds that we are utilizing to allocate towards this project, and I lost the page I was on. But it's a proportion of the DRP funds, and then, give me a second.
Yeah, because you guys created that mechanism in 2023 where you guys could treat a group of property owners the same that you do a developer. And that was the mechanism that we are now exercising. Not all those funds are coming from the DRP, but some of them can be used, and that's what we are proposing here, is because we have received some DRP funds back, and so there's that, and there's coming from some other areas as well. It's on page 152 of your packet.
152, and I'm going to round to the nearest whole number here, but it's about $800,000 from the DRP, which is the net position after encumbrances that we currently have, and then we are going to bring about $750,000 from our capital acquisition fund, an additional $300,000 from the general fund allocated towards this project. So the $800,000 is coming from that DRP, and then the remaining balance is a combination of the capital acquisition fund and funding from the general fund.
So back to James' comment then, so the half of that really is coming from non-DRP, which would have been invested, and we're pulling those out on that investment, right?
Not currently, it's funds that if they were not appropriated, they could be invested into the city's investment accounts.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Down the line, but I can't say that with certainty.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not really losing money on these funds?
Um,
We're not.
But I would say that it'd be a weird thing to get into to talk about whether you're losing money, because what's going to happen is when people start developing their properties, then we have property tax, right? And so I think this is how the city plays the long game of investing now, so that people can develop their properties, because when we have more people living there, they're paying property tax. We have them involved in our community more, all those types of things, and so it's it'd be hard to like draw that, but we are investing so that for the kind of the long game on the return on that.
And it's us loaning money to a group, like it's the 50% of the funds is us loaning money to this group. And so in the technical sense, it's money we could have invested in something else as it's being loaned out. But just to clarify on your further question, they have, according to the resolution, 6 months after the amounts assessed to pay the amount in full without any interest, and then after that 6 months, the remaining balance will be recorded and assessed to the property, and a payment plan will be set up with options of monthly, quarterly, or annual payments over 5, 10, or 20 years. And that interest for those balances is currently in the resolution set at prime plus 2.
Okay, and this is one last question, sorry, but the DRP, are we depleting DRP at the risk of another project that's in the works within the city? So this isn't interfering with another project?
It's actually injecting funds into the DRP because we're taking some general and capital acquisition funds and injecting that into our development reimbursement program. So as these funds become encumbered, we'll then see them return and have some additional funds in there.
It's a revolving loan. The DRP is essentially a depleting revolving loan.
Yeah, depleting them.
because you give money away and you get half back, and you put it back in. You give money away, you get half back.
So we have to.
I mean, but that's the cost of like development and the city's investment into development.
Further questions? Yes, Councilmember Werner.
Thank you, Mayor McClure. I just want to address one of the laydowns that we received from our fire chief in regards to this resolution, and I was hoping administration could speak to it. In going forward with the wells instead of city water and the fire hydrants, what can you guys speak to on this?
I'll invite the fire chief to come speak to that if you'd like. Perfect. Yeah.
Sorry, what was the question?
I was just hoping that you could explain a little bit more, just kind of the reasoning behind the fire hydrants and why this could be an issue for the city in regards to just fire safety and the insurance premiums. Could you just help explain that a little bit, please?
Yes, ma'am. I was just trying to give you our due diligence and give you the facts on our side. Number one, city code 9.15.115. Our fire hydrant distance is 500 feet maximum. Each property line shouldn't be more than 250 feet from a hydrant. And that's really laying in hose to a fire. We only carry so much hose. You only want to lay down so much hose. The further you have to lay, the longer response it is. So it's a national standard is 500 feet. And we're a small community. We rely on mostly volunteers, almost entirely volunteers. And so the less work, we have to do as far as laying more hose, laying, maybe trying to get an outside tender from Bear Creek, is going to be more salvageable for the property and the property owners, residents. Currently, we are not set up in the city because we're a municipality. We're not set up for that really rural tanker shuttle operations. And while we do have neighboring jurisdictions, Bear Creek and Lowell Point, that do have tankers, there's nothing to say that we wouldn't be on different fires at different times. And that has happened in the past where we didn't have their resources. It being a heavily forested area also concerns me, just being able to jump from one house to another just via the trees in general. Just makes me as the fire chief nervous. The ISO, the Insurance Services Organization, they set our insurance rating number qualifier, and then the insurance companies choose whether to use that number to set the rates for both residential and commercial businesses. And currently we're a 3Y, meaning the city of Seward proper over here is a 3, which is an excellent score. We get really good homeowners insurance, fire insurance for that. 3Y means anything beyond basically the 3 bridges. So starting on Nash where the city limits start, all the way over to Smick is considered a 3Y, meaning we have the services of Seward, but we have an extended distance response and no hydrants. And so if you had commercial or residential property on that side, you would probably see a higher insurance premium rate. They are actually scheduled to come here in August, coincidentally. What they do is they randomly choose locations throughout the city, both commercial and residential, and you have to prove you can provide the needed fire flow. Typically with us, it's really easy. We go open up a hydrant, we flow test it. Yeah, it gets 2,000 gallons a minute. They say you're good to go. If they were to choose a spot, say in this area, they're gonna say you need to show us that you can flow 2,000 gallons a minute, and we can't do that, not with our current resources. It would take multiple tankers, not just one, but multiple tankers, which we do have an agreement, auto aid agreement. We do get some credit from Bear Creek, but that could negatively affect the entire city's score.
And I did want to follow up too, and I would say that there's not a perfect solution to the situation. The city's not, like Anchorage deals with this right now. So they have, like, if you look on, they have actually like 12 square miles of residential areas that don't have fire hydrants in them. So if you like, it's east of Lake Otis and south of Abbott Loop, and out in all that area, they don't have fire hydrants. They also have statements in their like on their fire page. It says Anchorage has an ISO rating of Class 1, which is
the best, right?
For homes within 5 miles of a recognized fire station. Homes outside this range are considered Class 10,
which is essentially no services.
Right, and so we're dealing with a situation too that's imperfect, and they're dealing with some of that in that as well. And so it is a tension that I think that we live in, and it's like, do we get a look at, is our long-term solution getting a tanker truck? Or, I mean, there's things to make sure that we're making the ISO, but I think just looking at like Anchorage's code, you can see that they also deal with that tension of like, hey, we might not get to you if your house burns. And so, a lot of people that are not close. And I mean, I was measuring too, and some of those people are within, I mean, they're miles away from the fire station in those areas that don't have. And they're also too, it's not just like a straight shot, it's like snaking through, and they, because they have really updated, they have amazing fire hydrant maps in Anchorage that are really great, and you can kind of look at those types of things. So I do, I think, I mean, I don't, like, Clinton's concerns are very, very valid. Chief Kreitz's concerns are very valid, and it's just a tension that, like, how do we solve that? So.
Go ahead. Thank you for clarifying that. I was curious what other communities were doing in regards to that. Do you know how far away estimated the closest fire hydrant is to this area? Because there are some in the area.
There are some along Ash, from Oak Street down Ash up to Afognak, and then it turns left up Afognak. So the closest to some of these properties, it's anywhere from, I think 650 was the closest one, I believe, was the one to the end of,
well, there's three on Ash there, right? And then some of them, so the ones that are the south lots, you could actually get a hose to their lots. The ones that are I could look at the lot map, but we do have ones that they can actually reach to right now. I just don't think that you can get on the other side of Cottonwood is where you run into, like, if you go down on Cottonwood, you can get pretty darn close on some of them, but then once you're on the other side of Cottonwood, like, you are,
that's not every lot. It's just more of those northern lots.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you. Okay. Vice Mayor first, and then I'll...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this insurance rating, that would affect citywide?
Yes.
Residents in I mean, everyone that lives in the city, basically, if this rating gets changed, that affects the rate that we pay.
Yes, sir. It would just be, it's a point-based system.
Right.
And they judge our 911 system, our water department, and our fire department. And so each department's got its own scoring matrix. And so it may be, you lose 1 point here or 1 point there. Would it have an probably overall devastating account to the overall score? I can't say. But when you're borderline, we're doing really well. We're almost a 73, and so once I get to a 79, we could potentially get to a 2, which would be phenomenal for a town of our size. The city of Kenai, who's a fully paid department, is a 3, just like us. So it's because of our infrastructure that we have, and because we have such a good water system that we get really, really good points for that. But yes, it would be blanket wide. If you call your local insurance agent, more than likely, they're not going to know a lot about ISO. It's the parent companies that are setting these rates. And so, because I've had some people, I think I've asked if you saw a change or not. And so, yeah. But it would be citywide. We can't say, well, this block is.
Right, that's what I was getting. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if Anchorage has, you said, 12 square miles of the same thing, and they're at 1.0, I find it hard that this little area is going to affect our ISO in the manner that it's being perceived. I mean, how many feet does one truck carry?
It depends on the apparatus, but we carry roughly 1,000 total feet.
Okay, and you just said about 650, so you could run the whole truck to it.
That's our closest one. That was the 6.
But you could run a whole truck. Okay.
Yep.
And like you recommend, why don't we just solve these fears and put in for a tanker truck? Since Bear Creek's got one, Little Point's got one, and we have a contract depending on them, and you've said it's happening in fires, we couldn't get it. To solve the problem, get a tanker truck.
We'll also need a new fire station too.
I don't have anywhere to put it, first of all.
We gotta get the fire hall first.
And that excuse right there has been ongoing.
Yeah. Well, I think too, just to note, this is definitely a concern we wanted to make sure we brought to you, so you're making the full gamut of the decision, but I don't necessarily think I wanted to make sure that Clinton was able to showcase the concern from a fire standpoint. One, for the community, but also for the property owners as well, recognizing that this is a big change in the way that we do things, and operating under this could potentially see impacts down the road in the off chance that there is an opportunity or an issue where every water tank truck is taken and the response is less than.
Thank you.
I have one more comment. So that we did put into our code a special stipulation for areas that are without or outside of the water authority, thinking of Nash Road and further, especially the development that was coming. And so I'm assuming this would fall under that category if you were to pass this. Those residences would then be required to be sprinklered, the homes themselves. Yeah. So that would at least generally protect the homeowner to get out in case of a fire, not necessarily stop the house from burning down.
Right. Okay, any other questions, concerns? Councilmember Barnwell.
I'm kind of unclear, sorry, are we going to talk about the interest rates, and then are we going to, tonight's mission is to actually either adopt this or not?
If you guys would like to speak about the interest rates, you're more than welcome to speak about the interest rates, and then motion to, you would have to motion to amend the interest rate in the resolution.
But we are planning on voting tonight. Anything else? We're ready to vote. Mr. Clerk, I believe we're ready to vote.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2025-048. Wells?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure?
Yes.
That resolution has been approved.
Thank you. We're on our way. I see some smiles. Do we need a break, or can we go one more resolution here?
Go one more.
We're okay? Okay, let's move on to resolution 20, it's for public hearing also. Resolution 2025-058. Mr. Clerk, when you're ready, could you please read that? I know there's going to be a little scuffling here.
Just giving Tony more time to get
Wait
nervous.
a moment. Give me a chance to cough. Thank you. Okay.
Resolution 2025-058, authorizing the city manager to enter into a new lease with Mike and Norma McCormick for Lot 4, Block 2, Marina Subdivision, City of Seward, Alaska, and recorded as plat number 89-10 in the Seward Recording District, 3rd Judicial District, State of Alaska.
Okay, and you'll find this on page 170 of the packet. I need a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2025-058.
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Administration, who wants to talk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to invite the one and only Harbor Master up to the dais.
That's a harbor master right there.
That is.
harbor master. Thank you, City Manager, Madam Mayor. Good evening. And I signed a lot of autographs. And I had a lot of them already, so there was their chance, they met me already. So up for consideration this evening is the McCormick lease, also known as the Bay Barge over in the northeast corner of the Northeast Longchamp area. I think there was some confusion on where this lease was located, and I thank you, City Clerk, for adding that picture.
Oh, yeah.
Nice
You're
addition.
welcome.
And this is a very simple ask this evening. This lease has seen its term. It's been in place for 30 years with the McCormicks. They're in great standing with us, and we'd like to see that continue in that area, add a valuable service.
Okay, thank you. And did you have anything else?
No, I have nothing to add.
I will open the public hearing on Resolution 2025-058. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Nobody is signed in.
Is there anyone out there who would like to speak to this? Quiet people. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring this back to council. Any questions, concerns, discussion? I think I'm seeing no hands. Mr. Clerk, we're ready to vote.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2025-058. Wells?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That resolution has been approved.
Okay, and now, do we need a break? We're ready to go. Continue. Okay, we'll continue along. Great. Just let me know. New business. We have a resolution series of 4. Resolution 2025-049. Mr. Clerk.
Resolution 2025-049, authorizing the city manager to enter into a 5-year contract agreement with Axon Enterprise for the purchase of the Axon Virtual Reality Police Training Program and the necessary hardware not to exceed the amount of $276,745.52 and appropriating funds.
Okay, and this is on page 189 of the packet. I need a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2025-049.
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So to clarify first and foremost, this is the current program that we are utilizing. We are renewing this existing contract with Axon for an additional 5 years, and we have budgeted for it in the contract, or in our FY 25-26 contract budget. But over the course of the renewing of the contract with Axon, there was an increase in price. The last time we negotiated with them was 5 years ago, and so over the course of this next installment, we're seeing an increase in price, which is to be expected over that 5-year period. But we wanted to be fully transparent and bring back the resolution and the contract and showcase that an additional amount for $29,000 is being appropriated from the FY 25 and 26 police budget to fill that gap that wasn't budgeted for. So this is, like I said, the program that we have been using for the past 5 years. This is a renewing of that contract. We've had great work with them, but we are just appropriating the remaining funds to fill in that that gap between the budgeted and appropriated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, council, any questions, concerns, comments? Not seeing any hands, Mr. Clerk. Ready to vote?
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2025-049. Werner,
Yes?
Barnwell,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That resolution has been approved.
Okay. And now, as expected, we have Resolution 2025-052. Mr. Clerk, you get to read all these
All right.
things again.
It's slightly different, so I won't get too bored. Resolution 2025-052, recommending Kenai Peninsula Borough approval to remove plat note number 4 from lots 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, BC1, BC2, BD1, BD2, BE1, BE2, BF1, BF2, CF1, CF2, CG1, CG2, CP1, CP2, CQ1, and CQ2, Forest Acres Subdivision, Afognak Addition.
And you'll find this on page 207. I need a motion to approve and a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2025-052.
And a
Oh, second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Administration, do you want to tell what this is about again?
Yeah, so there is a selection of lots on a plat there that do have the lot restriction that states all lots within the subdivision must be connected to public sewer facilities prior to development. And so the borough requires if someone has a plat note on their plat, the individual property owner just can't go to the borough and say, I want this removed. The city council or the city, some city entity has to approve. And so we are just setting that approval for all lots that are listed there for that approval. So when the property owners go to have that removed, it's all been done. And we discussed this with the Borough Planning Commission, Borough Planning Department in advance, so they're aware of this. And they requested an official resolution instead of it being tied into improvement district.
Okay. Any questions, concerns, comments? This is Councilmember Barnwell.
It's amazing I have a question on this, but just curious why all the lots aren't in.
Because it's a plat, so if you look at the whole like subdivision, there's a plat within the subdivision that was replatted, and only those had that plat restriction, so it's just, so it's not all of the, because when they replat, sometimes they'll replat these lots together, those lots, and so it wasn't all the ones in the improvement district, just some of them.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any further questions? We're ready, Mr. Clerk. Please.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2025-052. Werner,
Yes?
Wells,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That resolution has been approved.
Okay, and now we have Resolution 2025-053. When you're ready, Mr. Clerk. It's an easier one to read.
Resolution 2025-053, authorizing the city manager to accept the proposal from Casteller Consulting for an additional investigation and mitigation work on the Jesse Lee Home property in an amount not to exceed $65,043.42 and appropriating funds.
And you'll find that on page 214. I need a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2025-053.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Administration. You're trying to decide who's going to speak to this.
I'll speak to this.
Okay.
And so after that last round of testing, we kind of thought we were just the engineer said, hey, I think DEC is going to be like good with this. We can just cover it back up and leave it. And so just because they work with DEC in lots of different areas, they kind of can tell when hopefully when things are going to be better. But DEC came back and required they want more boreholes drilled and more samples taken down deeper. And so their concern is that, and I did explain to them that we don't have wells in this area. We showed them where our wells, city wells are at, so they're not at all, like they're technically in a different like divide and slope as they run off even, but they still we tried to kind of gently like state our case, but they are still requiring us to drill a number of more holes that take samples down deep so they can look at how deep the actual contamination has gone and to make sure it's not in certain areas and to make sure that there's no groundwater down in there that is being contaminated. So this is the next step that we are required to do.
Okay. Questions, comments, discussion? I think we're ready to vote, Mr. Clerk.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2025-053. Barnwell?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Werner?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That resolution has been approved.
Okay, one more. Resolution 2025-054. When you're ready, Mr. Clerk.
Resolution 2025-054, authorizing the city manager to accept the proposal with Alaska Remote Imaging to conduct a GIS data update and field inspection services for the City of Seward Electric Department in the amount of $226,442 and appropriating funds.
And I'd ask for a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2025-054.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll invite Taylor to come up and speak to this. I was trying to decide which one to invite. But it's Taylor.
It's your big chance.
Yep, Madam Mayor, members of the council. So part of making a utility run, we have to have really good maps. So when we're doing line extensions or responding to outages, we have accurate data to work off of. And then also knowing what we have for assets. It can come down to the asset value of the utility. So we moved the CAD files into our GIS system, and when we did so, it could have been the data in the CAD files wasn't 100% accurate or one thing or the other. But anyway, our GIS map is not very accurate. And so what we're intending to do is hire Alaska Remote Imaging to come in and do a full inspection of our complete system, to put all the poles in the right spot with the date that's on the birthmark on the pole, what's on the pole, whether it's a fuse, where we've got different feeders, and so we know which circuit's which, and just to kind of true up our map in one big push. And then also provide training to our field engineer so that we can continue to make sure the map is updated in the future. So we looked at, I believe, 6 proposals that came back with our RFP, and there was a lot of companies that were in the lower 48 that didn't give us a complete, they didn't have the best understanding of our project, and even though Alaska Remote Imaging wasn't the cheapest proposal we got, I felt like they had a deep understanding of our project and they're ready to work in Alaska, and so that's how we made our choice. Now, part of this was funded under another project, which was our joint use inspection. And so we've had the same number of joint use poles since 2017. And so kind of another benefit from doing this is we'll know who's on our poles, and then we actually charge a fee for being attached to our poles. And so we can make sure we're getting the money back from the telecom companies.
But like you said, that has not been updated in nearly a decade. So this will give us an opportunity to update that and charge accordingly.
Okay. Okay, hang around. We might have questions. Council, questions, comments? You were thorough.
Thanks.
Are we ready to vote then? Thank you.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2025-054. Barnwell?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Werner?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That resolution has been approved.
Okay, and the only other item that we have is a discussion about proclamations. And just to begin this, the clerk and I were in discussion about what proclamations we have. Are there a standard list? We've not ever had a standard list. How do proclamations get started? And through the process, researched a few other places too. And one of the things that I guess I wasn't aware is that the proclamations being signed by me, the determination of a proclamation falls to the mayor. But it's nice to know what's out there too. So we sort of put it out there, what proclamations would people like to have, and maybe there could be a standard list. Some lists have been submitted. I have ideas like Seward's Day and Founder's Day and a few things like that. This isn't meant to be an all-inclusive, but as we come up with things. So, did you want to say anything more about it, Mr. Clerk, too? Because it was kind of
it's
how
an
it started.
interesting topic. The more I looked into it and looked at what other cities had, there were some pretty extensive guidelines for proclamations in other cities, and we have actually no guidelines or anything written down for a policy. So this is kind of opening it up for discussion to kind of see what our procedure should be, what proclamations people want to see as like a set in stone list, or if it's just a case by case basis that is pending mayoral approval. So good first conversation to have.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
I kind of, because the proclamations are mayoral proclamations, I kind of like the idea that the mayor actually has the say-so of what the mayor would like to do as a proclamation or not. I think the standard practice has been suggestions that have been made in the past, but since it is one of the acts that a mayor takes, then the mayor is the one who can take that suggestion and either decide whether or not to do that, to make that proclamation officially or not. A list would kind of be inclusive and not inclusive at the same time. I mean, you're not going to have, there could be 100 things on that thing, and there could be 10. I mean, it's one of those things that where I think if someone just suggests it, then I think it could be taken under consideration. Like I said, there's just such a wide swath of things that there could be proclamations for. We could have 100 meetings and do nothing but proclamations. So I think we just need to be kind of careful about what we're doing here.
Councilmember
Thank you,
Finch.
Madam Mayor. I agree with Mr. Peck about other cities do have policies and procedures and guidelines and requirements, and I think one of the requirements is the city, like all city employees signing the paperwork saying they will not get involved in any political issues. The city should remain neutral on any political issue. The list that I submitted, I'd like to add D-Day to it because 4,413 men died that day storming Normandy Beach, and we need to know our history because our kids are not being taught the history at the level that we were taught. And when history's forgotten, history will repeat itself. So I think...
I'll add that. What I have is a whole bunch of suggestions at this point, and I was thinking that maybe the clerk and I get together and look that over and come up with something and maybe bring it back as, how does this sound to the council?
Yeah.
And then, things will come up, like I'm probably the only one that wants, Founder's Day, but it's an important thing because I get to play the pump organ at the museum that day, it's a thing. So, yeah, rather than make this, but the main thing that came out of this is, I guess I didn't realize that, I know my name's on it, but I didn't realize how much, that's more power than I thought I had, I guess, but anyway, proclamations are important, and, we need to, remember a lot of things, so we can either, I know the Vice Mayor feels that less is better in terms of proclamations. I've heard this over and over, and we all have our opinions, so. Okay, so anything else for the good of the order on that? Okay, thank you. Next council meeting will be Monday, June 23rd at 7. I don't believe we have a work session scheduled for that.
No.
And now, although it's thinned out a bit, we have citizen comments. 5 minutes you get if you want it. Anybody want to speak? Okay. Then that brings it back to us. Council and administration comments and responses, and I'll start with the city manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to end with a big thank you to start for Cody and Brian for all of their work on the RTO. That's a lot of background work that has been going on and is going to be really beneficial for our community in the long run. I went to one of those meetings. It was 9.5 hours. I then proceeded to eat 2 plates of Chinese food in Anchorage and slept for 14 hours afterwards. So the fact that Cody has gone to 2 of the meetings is impressive to me.
That's frightening.
It was a big day for me. I also want to give a big thank you to Jason. We were joking all day today about how this was a big Jason heavy meeting with all the work from the Jesse Lee Home and the Special Improvement District, but wading through all of those comments and everything from the property owners over there and working to create a solution, I think he did a great job. So big kudos to Jason on that, and thank you that rain stopped. That was kind of wild. So.
Yeah. Jason.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for all of your work on this agenda tonight. It was a pretty big agenda. I thought we'd be here for like at least another hour and a half, possibly. And just I want to say thank you to the city clerk. This is something that we had to work really closely together, and actually both the attorneys, we were back and forth on a lot of this stuff, and so I appreciate it. This is like people won't see it, but it's very much like a team effort. Cody and Sam and I went back and forth on a lot of different things in a lot of different places, and so they make this stuff a lot stronger when we go through it and make sure that the city's interests make sure that's being protected, and Chris and I had some great communication to just make sure that we can get the best feedback from the property owners, and so there's a lot of effort when you do mail outs and all that kind of stuff and tabulating things, and so I thought we did a pretty good job, so thank you.
I would also like to add one of the faces in the audience tonight that you may not recognize is our new executive admin, Kristen. With Ashley stepping into the HR role, we're able to backfill her role with a really qualified and amazing candidate. So excited to have Kristen on the team.
Okay, Councilmember Warner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to echo thank you for all the hard work for that Special Improvement District. I'm really happy that we were able to pass those resolutions and help some of those property owners become homeowners and have some development. Also just want to state that I'm really excited about the Jesse Lee property. I'm happy that I was able to come for that work session. I think that's going to be a great asset to our community, and hopefully we get some sunshine soon.
Yeah. Councilmember Barnwell. I'm just going to come this way. I'm mixing it up a little.
Yeah, I think that I'm excited about the Avognac edition, and I really appreciate all the work, and I know Jason's put a ton of work into this, and I know Councilmember Wells also. So it's just really exciting. I think it's a great thing, and I like the way it turned out. And I do appreciate you guys working on the rail belt. That'll. It's hard to understand what you do, but
thank you.
But we really do appreciate you guys getting it done, and we do trust that you guys are doing the right thing. So appreciate that. And as for the proclamations, yeah, I think Vice Mayor Osenga's idea of maybe the mayor having that power is probably a good idea. That could be, and it's kind of a luxury of being a mayor, so I think it's not a bad idea. You need some luxuries, and that's it.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I have no comment.
Oh, okay, Councilmember Kreis.
I just wanted to again say thank you for all the work that you've done and for the Jesse Lee home. That was nice to see that getting moved forward. And I had to laugh when you said that because that's the first time that's made any sense to me. What you said about the roads and I have a different thing in mind. That makes sense. And then if everyone hasn't been aware that our little town has made national news.
Oh yeah.
For our rescue. So if you haven't seen it, it's everywhere. Today's show and yep.
It's pretty sweet.
Thank all the first responders for that.
Okay. Councilmember Fitch.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad to see the Jesse Lee Home thing is actually moving forward. Now, TDC, please. That's all I can say on that. The Afognak area, I'm glad that's moving forward because that's got to be very frustrating for all parties involved, having land and not being able to build with what took place with it. The proclamations, I mean, like I say, we need to help the public remember the people that died for the rights that they have and the privileges you have in this country. You know, Seward would not be Seward if it wasn't for the military and all the financial support and jobs that they created over the years. Imagine Seward without that military support, it might not have survived. So we need to honor those vets, and if it's monthly, we should do it monthly. That's it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'll start with the DC trip because I haven't said anything about DC. I just need to let everybody know how absolutely fantastic Kat was as far as everything that needed to be parlayed to everybody we were talking to about this city. No matter what the topic was, she was on top of everything. I have to also say that Sebastian was really awesome about the legislative stuff happening in DC. And so whatever funding issues or whatever questions we had about anything, Sebastian had all that information, which leads to why was I there? I represented these guys, and that was all my job was to do that and to walk with Kat through the streets of DC, because taking an Uber just seemed kind of goofy when we only had a mile to go, or 10 blocks or whatever it was. Earlier tonight, just on a sad note, I'm not as cool as the bad boys at Clerks or as our harbor master because I dang near fell out of my seat. And that's why we were laughing. We were laughing so hard, and I feel bad because I was not trying to diss anything that was going on up here. I did. My seat almost slid out from under me, and I almost fell on the floor. So that's what that was, and I just wish I could be as cool as the harbor master and the city clerk, but it's not going to happen.
But it's on video.
It's on video, right? So thank you, everybody.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone who came, and I'm really pleased that we're moving ahead with the subdivision out there, and it's time. Good job in DC. Good job with the secretary. Seward's on the map for a lot of reasons, I think. I want to offer an invitation to my cemetery tour on solstice, the 21st of this month at 10:30 p.m. If you meet me out there at the Legion Cemetery, we'll walk through 15 grave sites, and I'll read the obituaries. I'm carrying on the tradition from Lee Pileski. And it's a good group of people we're going to meet that night. And on anything else, last chance. Okay, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:37.